Hello and welcome to something a little bit different. You may notice that the arches are not sat on the desk, and that's because we're going to be looking at something non-railway related. Over the coming weeks and months you'll start to see not just the name rail stuff but also scenic stuff, as I've realised that the majority of the products that I sell for railway modelers are also good for scale modelers as well. So it kind of feels like the time when I should take a look outside of the model railway world as well. And in fact, in just a few weeks' time, I'm going to be heading to the MAFVA Nationals. See if I get this right. I think it's the Model Armoured Fighting Vehicle Association, or the Miniature Armoured Fighting Vehicle Association, something like that. Anyway, they've invited me to their national show in Cambridgeshire in just a few weeks' time. So I thought I should probably get into the spirit of that a little bit and build something. So I've bought myself one of these. This is a Rubicon Models Willy's MB. Now there is a reason why I've chosen one of these, and that is that my dad actually owns one. Insert picture here. Yeah, he had one restored. I think got it last year, or maybe it was earlier this year. Yeah, he's got a real one, fully restored and in great condition. And this also has the option in the pack of using a twin bazooka. So therefore, it would be an armoured vehicle, right? So there we go. I thought it ticks all of the boxes, so I'm going to have a go at building one of these. I've not actually done a plastic kit like this before, so this could go very right, it could go very, very wrong. But first of all, I got this through Expo Tools, who I buy a lot of products through for the shop, but they have these available, so I thought, well, I'll give it a go. So let's have a look at what we get inside. So just so you know, by the way, this is a 1/56 scale plastic kit. It's a 1/4 ton 4x4 utility truck. It does include the water slide decals as well, which I'm notoriously bad with, so yeah, that's probably where it will go wrong. So we've got what appears to be like the main big sprue there. Instructions. I was maybe hoping for a little bit more detail on the instructions, but I guess we'll have to figure that out. There's the aforementioned decals, which, oh my god, some of them are tiny. I don't know if you can see that on there, but some of these ones are absolutely minuscule. This, I think, is the people sprue. Again, there's some very small parts on there. This one looks like doors and bits and pieces like that. This appears to be more people. So I think maybe 4 people in total. This appears to have some kind of canopy in there. And then, that appears to be the main parts of the Jeep itself. So, like I say, I'm not really familiar with building kits like this, so we're going to have to kind of figure this out as we go. I'm also trying to figure out the best adhesive for this as well. I'll probably use an ultra thin cement, something like, well, the one that I've got already open and half used is this Modeller's World one. You can't really get this in the UK anymore, thanks to the B word. This Polish brand stopped importing to the UK, but I'm still using up what I've got. But other options might be the Deluxe Materials Plastic Magic. It's a very similar kind of product to that with brush. Even the Humbrol Liquid Poly. They're quite similar products, and also there is an ultra thin cement in the MIG Ammo range that I'm now stocking as well. So I would suggest, if you were going to find your closest version of this, then head to rail-stuff.com or scenic-stuff.com and take a look at the MIG Ammo ultra thin plastic cement. That will do the job as well. So I guess without further ado, let's start taking these out of some packets and seeing what we've got. Once again, a little bit perturbed by the minuscule size of some of these parts, but I may have to dig out my glasses for this. Oh my god, there's some breakable stuff in here as well. Maybe I should have gone for a 1:1 size instead of 1:56. Could have just inserted a picture of my dad's and said, "Hey, there we go, finished." Used a bit of tilt shift on the camera shot, make it look like a model. Easy. The idea of this, by the way, is that I want to have this built in time for the MAF Nationals, and I'll probably make a fairly basic scenic base for it as well, with a bit of grass and mud, sort of almost like what you get in this picture here. Really, is some grass and bits and pieces. Maybe even a tree. I might have a spare tree up there that I can pinch as well. I've got a cutting pad. I could probably do with a new one. This is a little bit warped, but this one will do for now. And I've got a new blade on my knife. I did have a nice Swan Morton knife, but somebody pinched it and I haven't had it back yet. So I guess the sensible thing would be to sort of lay out the parts as I find them that I need. See, I would have thought, no, okay, maybe not. So I'm looking for some kind of chassis, which I think must be this one here. Oh, they are numbered. Yes, B40 is this chassis, and I've got to figure out where to cut it off the sprue. I now understand why it is I sell the sprue and fret cutters and why people use them. So we're looking for B39 next. There we go. And I'm sure any scale modelers actually watching this are probably horrified by my techniques, but like I say, this is the first time doing this, so give me a chance. I guess we all learn by screwing things up, right? So B38. Oh, he's there. Okay. basics are done. It's tiny. It's really tiny. It was harder work than I expected, but also in some ways easier than I expected. So yeah, I mean, there are still some finishing parts that can go on, but for the most part it's pretty good. Fairly nice, easy kit to work with, not too bad. But yeah, just some bits, like I say, that were really quite fiddly. So now I need to look at a base for it. So I've got a few of these, just A6 MDF pieces. Is that A6 or is that A5? It's A5, isn't it? A5 MDF pieces, and that sort of seems like a decent little size for a small diorama of that, or I may even cut it down even smaller. You know, maybe I could go with A6, for example. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to do a very small diorama on here, which will be a mixture of some static grass and some mud effects as well. So we'll probably start off with the basics being using some, I don't know whether to use plaster cloth or whether to use some filler just to create a bit of rough ground. Off the back of that, or then paint in dark brown, and then start to add the grass and things on top. So I've decided to leave it at A5, and I've decided to go with filler, because sometimes in life it's just good to have a bit of mess going on. Let's see if I can get it to stick properly to the base. The idea is I just want to create some roughness to the ground, some relief to it as well. I don't actually think that the scenic part of this is going to be the hardest part. I know full well that the hardest part of this build and this little diorama is going to be the painting of the Willy's Jeep. So that's certainly not going to happen in this video. As much as anything, I'm probably going to need some paints that I don't normally stock. It would help if I was using some filler that wasn't starting to set in the pot. That pot is a cheap sort of £1 pot from the Range or Poundland or something like that, and it's been going a good few years, so it's doing well. And this time when I came back to it, I don't think the lid was 100% fully sealed, so it's actually done quite well to stay alive at all. And there is no rhyme or reason to this. Just rough ground. What we'll do is probably just make sure that through the middle there is what kind of resembles a track. So there we go, that's some nice rough ground. Make sure I get the lid on this properly this time. There we go, that's what I didn't do last time. It's alright, that bottle wasn't needed for anything. So that is just some very basic filler on an MDF sheet. I'll let that dry a bit, not completely, but I'll let it dry a bit before we add some brown paint. And when I talk about brown paint for this kind of job, I'm really talking about your cheap £1–2 bottle of acrylic paint. That with a bit of black, maybe just to make it a bit darker, will be the kind of base that goes over this. The reason I don't let this go fully dry is that actually I want the paint to kind of soak in a little bit and actually start to just mould the shape a little bit more. I'll always use one of my rough brushes for that as well. So one of these brushes that you will have seen me use before, and we'll do that. Once that's then dried and set, we'll then use some muddy ground acrylic textured paint to create a track through the middle, and then it'll be a case of static grass over the top, and I'll be using the WWS stuff for that as usual. So time to let this dry. So earlier on I gave it a very dark coat of brown over the filler, and then I used the acrylic mud, which is a textured paint. This one's the muddy ground. I used that through the flatter centre section to create an appropriately sized muddy track, which, as you can see, is about the right size for this Jeep that we're putting on there. The next stage is, of course, to add some grass. There's not going to be a lot on this diorama. It's really somewhere to host this little Jeep, and at some point that's going to need painting. That's going to be the difficult bit, like I said earlier. So I'm now going to put some static grass on here, including a small run down the middle of the track as well. Like you would do on a muddy track, you'd have some grass growing up through the middle of it as well. So I guess it's time to get prepared and lay some grass. Now, some of you will have seen me doing some static grass before, but for those of you that haven't, this is the basics of what I need. So a basing glue. Don't use just ordinary PVA. You need a basing glue. A PVA will be in a constant state of motion even after it's set, so it's not good for the static grass long term. This has got a completely different base to it. It's not PVA. So use the basing glue. You'll need some static grass layering spray, which you can either get in the pump bottle that is wetter than this is, or the aerosol. You'll need an applicator, of course. This one is the WW Scenics Pro Grass Micro Static Grass Applicator. It's the only one I ever use, and it's great, does the job. And then, because we're going to want to build some layers up, we're going to want two different lengths of grasses. So 2mm is always my base, and then I normally go with a 4mm over the top. Now the 2, I would normally go greener than this, but because this is such a muddy look, I'm quite happy to go with the 2mm patchy as the base. Top tip for you, you might be able to hear in the background, I've got a fan blowing because it is pretty warm. I'm going to turn that off before I start putting down some static grass. If you've ever made that mistake before, you'll never make it again. I have, I won't make that mistake again. So first thing, back to my trusty craft and glue brush, the cheap basic brush for putting the basing glue on. I'll start with this front patch here. So just going to put some basing glue on like that, and then of course I'm going to use my brush to spread that out. Now you don't have to be entirely accurate with the glue, because if you leave some muddy patches, some bare patches, then that's not actually a terrible thing, is it? You know, one thing I will say is when you're doing static grass, don't be too accurate. You're not trying to reproduce the lawns of Wimbledon here. We're trying to reproduce a dirty rural scene. So there's the the basing glue on there. So I don't need to pin this to anything, just hold it in the general area. So I'm going to turn this on. You can see the light has come on, and here we go. Waste not, want not. That will go straight back in the hopper. I have seen people before just throw their scraps away. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? Okay. Static grass isn't cheap these days, so certainly don't just let it disappear. So I am sort of getting it right up to the edge of the acrylic mud that I painted on earlier. Like I say, patches are fine, but I sort of want to blend in the edge where the dark meets the acrylic mud. So that's the first lot. So that's 2mm patchy has gone down. Now, a top tip from WW Scenics is then to start messing it up a bit with your fingers and sort of just clump it up a bit like this, which is what I'll do. It looks a bit weird right now, but it creates a more natural effect. Now I'll give it a spray with layering spray. You see how the clumpy bits have made it look a bit more natural. Now what I have got though is I didn't cover over the mud track, so always keep a stiff dry brush to hand so that you can brush off any bits like this that you don't want. Now I'm going to put some 4mm winter grass in the hopper. Now ideally I'd have my deballer as well, because you notice that they've gone in sort of balled up clumps. A WWS deballer is an absolutely critical accessory to have when doing this, but I don't have mine to hand. It's in the house and the baby's sleeping in the house, so I'm not going to get it right now. But I've just then mushed it up with the back end of my brush there. So I'm just literally going to spray on some small patches here where I want the longer grass. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the basing glue and just run a patchy line up the centre of the track. So hopper lid back on, clip at the ready, and that is a quick diorama piece is just about done. So I don't want too much more down the centre, so I'll see what it looks like when it dries, because obviously at the minute I can still see the grass, but sorry, not the grass, the glue. Hopefully when that dries, that's going to look bob on. Meanwhile, bear with me whilst I just collect up my excess. So that's kind of where we're at for a couple of hours work on a small diorama and building a Willy's Jeep. So that's kind of where we're at. In the next video I'm going to try and paint this up and add some bush foliage to the diorama, just to add a little bit of something else, but that'll be pretty much it on it. So the idea was literally just to throw together a quick diorama for this Willy's Jeep, yeah, hopefully it's been interesting to see a couple of techniques, and if you're into this kind of stuff, then head to the MFVA Nationals in St Ives, Cambridgeshire in just a couple of weeks time. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you soon.